Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Freedom Brigade Nation. We have producer Andrea and we have Dan Lyons with us today. Hi,
Yay!
Dan. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm really excited about what you offer, and I have been very excited about the stuff you've been bringing on your Substack. So we have you have this offer for the brigades today. You offer training and nutrition advice, correct?
Yes, it's 100% online, and I have several programs. The program that is the most popular is a 12-week program. Again, it's entirely online, and it's 12 weeks of online personal training and nutrition coaching, and comes with my diet plans and everything. And yeah, that seems to be kind of the most popular program that I offer right now. I also have a year-long one, but the 12-week one it's kind of like good timing, because 12 weeks from now it's going to be the dead of summer. So
Yeah.
everyone wants to get in shape for summer, but also
Yeah.
people want to get in shape because this is Maha, and we have to we all have to get in shape, get healthy for any
We have to
situation that comes
practice
our
what we're
way.
preaching right now. It's funny because we do a lot of work with the Maha. I do it across, a lot of my clients. We're close to the Maha movement, and it's like it's funny when people start reaching out to you for advice and wanting to talk about. Because Dan's Substacks are great. So you got to go to the Substack. It's danlyons.substack.com, I believe, but I'll throw it up there. But you got to check out.
Fitness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dan Lyons
put it up
Fitness.
there. I think it's Dan.
Yeah, substack.com. But I'll share the screen. But the stuff that you put out there, but it's funny. It's like I've been preaching carnivore, and I was into CrossFit years ago. And before I got into Maha and all the freedom fighting stuff, I was a personal trainer. And it's funny, if people see you out and about, if you preach carnivore and stuff and you're eating a pizza, they'll be like, wait a second. Or, when we get colds or flus and stuff, people are like, I thought you knew all the tricks to stay healthy. And so it's like, we have to walk the walk. Like, we do have to show people the way.
So I got to do a disclaimer. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna chime in off that. It's funny because I also teach in-person personal training sessions, but for groups of people, and I probably get sick twice for every 10 years. Every decade, I seem to get sick twice. And the last time I was sick, I got the flu for like 2 days this past winter, and it was the first time me getting sick at all in 6 years.
And everyone was giving you a hard time.
Everyone was giving me a hard time. They were like, they were all teasing, but they were like, wait a minute,
You're
I
the
thought you were
Patriot
supposed to be
trainer.
healthy.
Yeah, you're supposed to make me healthy. Oh, that's funny.
So
Yeah.
Dan,
I was
there
like,
are people out there so there's Andrea who's like, I did CrossFit and I've done this. And then there's people like me, right? So I was always naturally skinny. I did whatever I wanted. I ate ice cream at midnight if I wanted to. I would eat pizza all day. And I was just a skinny mini, do whatever I want. And then I got cancer. I lost my thyroid completely. And I had another baby. And all of a sudden, I don't just get to do what I want anymore. And by the way, I'm not real excited about that. And so there are those of us that are less disciplined. Will your program help us? Like, can you offer those of us that are not as disciplined and, I'm disciplined with work, but not with taking care of myself. We walk by my home gym and I just kind of look at it and keep walking. So for those of us that are not the Andreas of the world, what do you have for us? Will you I think I was telling you guys before the show, Constance, if you're watching, I still think of you. When I was going to college, and I went back as an adult, the most I worked out was when she would be like, yeah, I'm coming to get you. We're going to go work out every day at 5:00. And I felt great when we did that. But I need somebody that's like, hey, we're showing up today. No, you can't sleep in. I don't care if you're dying. I'll be there in a minute. So what do you offer for the people like me? Because I think there's more of me out there than there are of Andreas. Just saying.
yeah. So I would say that the number one excuse that I always hear is people don't have the time. And everyone's living, super busy lives with scheduling and everything. And my program is nice because it basically kind of is up to you with your schedule. So there's really no excuse. You get your 2 personal training sessions every single week. You have to do them. You have to complete them. I see that you complete them because, it's all in like a course completion software. So people have to do their 2 sessions. They can do it on their own time, and they can directly communicate with me in the program, which is nice. So it's like a hybrid between, it's not live one-on-one, but you can, contact me and you can get your questions answered through the program. So I think the biggest motivator to answer your question would be we need to just stand up as patriots and get healthy and get fit, and that is the best motivator that I just need to remind people that, listen, it's up to you. Obviously, it's God, but in in this situation, God's giving you the opportunity to get healthy and fit. So it's up to you to kinda capitalize on that, and that should be your number one motivator to get you out of bed in the morning. So that's just my unique.
That's good.
Well, and Dan, when Dan became from what I know about Dan, because now we've become good friends, but when he became the Patriot trainer, a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were living in such an incredible time that, you just brought up when we were off air with Charity. Well, if something happens and you can't get to the pharmacy and everything crashes, this is what I need to give you advice on how to taper off of drugs or use other things. Like, you've been big in the prepping and like the survival space. And I think that your passion, what you've told me to help people, is to help them stay healthy through these really kind of apocalyptic feeling times. Like, we have to be healthy. We have to be physically and mentally and spiritually strong. And he talks about faith a lot with that. But I think that's kind of the coolest thing that you bring that other trainers don't, is the fact that, as patriots, we should want to be physically strong. We're fighting the devil. So we got to be sharp.
Yeah, we really are. And I think that as human beings, we have the tendency to get comfortable where we are. Like, especially right now, our administration is in power, and we kind of can like sit back and relax a little bit. But we really need to be on top of this, because we don't know what's going to happen. Even if everything goes really well in our favor, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of this term. And, meanwhile, the 2030 agenda is still rolling on. So that's right. I'm cautiously optimistic about what's going to happen, but we all just need to get fit and healthy, and it's up to us. We only have one body.
And it's not just supplements. The Maha movement, everyone's talking about methylene blue and everything. Everyone says they saw Bobby putting it in, his water on a plane and stuff. It's like, what I love about you is, if we're just living off the land, and we don't have all these supplements and these things at our disposal, we need to be healthy with the food that we can harvest and have readily available, whole foods, whole organic foods. But moving our bodies, getting in the sunlight, grounding, there's so many things. God gave us everything we need. So I think sometimes Maha and some of the nutritional world gets too pushed into supplements. So what I love about you is you push against that. You get us grounded to the earth has given us everything that we need. God has given us everything we need.
Exactly. And you can get healthy with food, and not eating food too. So that's where the fasting comes in. Fasting has tremendous benefits that will help you to completely rebuild your body from the inside out. So I always say, if you're struggling with something with your body, if you just subtract something rather than add, you're probably going to be better off. So in the case of fasting, that's kind of the most extreme, is you're subtracting food in general. But in reality, you can cure a lot of, actually, I shouldn't say you can cure, but you can make your situations, you can get in trouble. But you can make your situation a lot better, whether you have weight to lose, whether you want to get stronger, whether you're struggling with diabetes, insulin resistance, or even, more severe diseases like cancer. You can really turn your body around by subtracting things, subtracting food. And, that's not really talked about in today's world. It's all about, I think it was Procter and Gamble with Kellogg's that invented breakfast, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. The cereal industry. Yep. You need to wake up and have your breakfast in the morning. Don't eat eggs. They're going to give you a heart attack. You got to eat this cereal here. Eat these cornflakes, eat the Cocoa Puffs, whatever it is. And then that'll give you these, this energy throughout the day. And that's the healthiest way to keep your cholesterol down. It just, the drama goes on, and it's none of it's true. So.
And what you just said, Dr. Sherrie Tenpenny talks about how she was doing, I think, a speech at a university, and it was for med students, and they all just were confused when she stood up there and said, all diseases are caused by two things. And she said, too much of something or not enough of something. So she talked about that. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like simple, like it's kind of simple, stupid. When you talk about the fasting, I've loved fasting with the carnivore diet, but when you wrote the piece, and again, everyone should go to your Substack, danlyonsfitness.substack.com. The piece that you wrote about the fasting and the diabetes was fascinating to me, because like what you're saying is fasting can basically rebuild your cells, shock your body into functioning better, and make your cells function properly again.
So fasting with diabetes, how does that work? Because surely people can't, with their blood sugar would drop if they weren't eating.
The blood sugar will drop if they're not eating and they're taking insulin. And that's actually a really dangerous situation, because you could die. You could go into hypoglycemic shock and die. But what'll happen is you have two types of diabetes. You have type 1, which you require insulin for, because your pancreas is not making insulin anymore. But all the other diabetic situations, whether it's type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, blood sugar dysregulation, it can all be controlled with diet. And basically what it is you're just giving, this is what causes it in most situations. You're giving yourself too much carbohydrate too often. And when the carbohydrate breaks down in your body, it becomes blood glucose, but your body doesn't want a lot of blood glucose circulating in your blood. So give or take 4 grams of glucose. Now, just to put that in perspective, 4 grams of glucose is equal to 1 packet of sugar throughout your whole body. Wow. So when people eat a bagel that has, give or take, 50, 60 grams of carbohydrate that breaks down into, because it's refined white flour usually, breaks down into literally 50 or 60 grams of glucose, and your body only wants 4 in your bloodstream at all times, where's that massive remainder going to go? It needs to go somewhere, and it's either going to be stored as body fat, or it's going to get pushed into your muscle cells as what's called stored glycogen for later use. But how does it get there? It gets there from your pancreas releasing insulin. So the insulin is almost like your taxi, bringing the excess blood glucose somewhere else, so it's not in your bloodstream at all time.
And we're wearing it out. We eat so much, and we're wearing it out. We eat so much gluten or glucose, it's carbohydrate, that these taxis are getting tired. They're breaking down.
So I hear I told you so coming from Andrea, because she's been telling us for months, you guys just eat meat. My meat eats my vegetables. Anyway,
well,
but
so
you
that's
go
the thing
into this on your Substack, correct? People can find, you go into detail on your Substack, and you guys need to follow him, Dan Lyons Fitness on Substack.com, and you have a deal for us today. So if you go to freedombrigades.com and you join, you can get, now what is it that's usually $165? Is that the 12-week program?
That's the 12-week program, and it's now $79 plus. If you enter the promo code, you get an additional 20% off that.
Oh, that's a great deal, guys. So you can get 12 weeks for $79 plus the 20% off. So that is an amazing deal. Dan, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm going to go check out your Substack. You also wrote some stuff on the seed oils. And okay, are you taking him to, she's going to take you down to right there, the 20% off. Yeah. And I think he's also on the homepage too, but yeah.
So that is the 12-month program. That's the entire year program. The 12-week program is the other one, but you can actually get 20% off of either one of those.
Use promo code FREEDOM. You guys are Freedom, right? Freedom Brigades.
Yes. Yep.
Use promo code FREEDOM. Dan's a badass. If you want to stay healthy, again, Maha can't just be supplements, and I mean, food, I always say, unfortunately, everyone's like, how do you get abs in the summertime? Those are going to be made in the kitchen. Food is important, but Dan is the best trainer out there. He's a patriot like us. He'll teach you about how God made everything we need, and he's one of us. So I hope everyone goes to his site and signs up.
Well, and it's more than being skinny. It's about brain fog. It's about so much more. I started taking Pregnolone, which is natural supplement to help with the brain fog. But did you see that Utah took fluoride out of their drinking water?
Amen. People are waking up to the fact that we've been poisoned. Like all these things that were
20 years we've been saying this.
And if you think they were putting fluoride in your water and you're not sure why, think of what they're putting in your Pop-Tarts. Do not trust. When do you trust these liars? Do not trust them.
Oh, here's an interesting.
Go ahead.
Here's an interesting fun fact too. Fluoride actually can make you insulin resistant and can make you type 2 diabetic.
Oh gosh, of course it can.
Of course it can. It probably gives you cancer too. Not only does it make you stupid.
It does from the same metabolic pathways. It's a heavy metal. It disrupts what's called your electron transport chain, which is how your cells make energy. And then when that happens, you can get all sorts of mutations in your mitochondria and your DNA from your nucleus. And that's one of that's the other way that you become insulin resistant, is from cells that cannot produce energy properly in the mitochondria. So I'm glad that they removed the fluoride from the water, because it was increasing the rates of obesity and diabetes and cancers and all those fun things.
We've only seen this in Utah. So Oklahoma, I need you to come on board. Nevada, the rest of the states.
Mm-hmm.
We need everybody to jump on
board. But
board.
once we have one state, like we know with the work we do with Freedom Brigades, and everyone needs to go to freedombrigades.com to join our grassroots resistance movement, where you just give us 4 hours a month of your time and get involved with these actions. But we follow legislation and we follow these bills. And what Tom Renz always says, once we get one state to push it through and be effective and win, then it's very easy for us to replicate. So it's a big win, but we do need to be tracking it across states and saying, okay, now it's my state's turn. Let's go. Call up your state reps right now and say, we want to do that.
That's right. If you also go to freedombrigades.com, you can go anywhere you see Tom's name. He has his own page. He's on almost every page. Click on his name, click on his picture. It'll take you to tomrenz.com. We partner with Tom in a big way. Also, I want to give a shout out to America Happens, who always puts our podcast out there. They're a great partner for us. You know, the Freedom Brigades. So we talk about how red Oklahoma is. And this last weekend in a small town in Oklahoma, they had a drag show story hour at a bookstore. Now, guys.
Well, you had this on your Substack, right? So plug your Substack.
Yes. So go to, I think it's Charity Lynch. I did Freedom Brigades and they didn't want to play with that. They said, oh, we think that you might be doing something good there. So
Charity Lynch, CharityLynch.substack.com. Okay.
Yeah, but the Freedom Brigades, and I did not write that. That was written by a Freedom Brigade leader, Nathan Volkers, who's a rock star here. But they went and just held peaceful signs up saying, protect innocence. You guys, if we are not drawing the line and standing up for righteousness, nobody will. These kind of things are nothing short of grooming your children and stealing their innocence. A 5-year-old should not even be considering that a man is dressing up like a woman. I mean, this is not something, it's disgusting on levels, but this is happening on levels. I want to bring on Sherrie Conley, who has, I think she founded Broken Trust. Hi, Sherrie. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you all?
Great. So she was a rep here. And are you still serving in the House?
No, ma'am. My last day in the House was November 19th. I stepped away to actually run Broken Trust because the agenda that we are working on is so very important.
Yeah, we've had Mandy Reed on that has talked about that too. I know you guys work closely. But you have been going around the state of Oklahoma, who, once again, guys, if this is happening in Oklahoma, it's happening where you are at, because we're supposed to be the reddest state in the country, which is horrifying if you live here. Let me tell you.
Yes.
Yes. So your particular topic recently is, I keep using the word horrifying. I can't think of a better word. You're saying that predators actually prey on schools purposely. That was a lot of, yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the sayings that I use is that the predators are in the schools masquerading as educators, and they're going to go into whatever organization where the young people are. We've seen it in the Olympics. We've seen it in Hollywood. We've seen it in Boy Scouts, churches, and now Broken Trust is bringing light to the predators in our schools.
So people, when they're watching this, they're going to say that can't be true. They're not really in our schools. So can you tell us some of the proof, some of the stuff that you're seeing?
So about this time last year, in February last year, I started gathering data because I was curious about how many predators we actually had, based on the story from out in Shawnee, which most people in Oklahoma are very familiar with, where a predator had been in a school district for 15 years, preying on young people through 3 administrations, where 3 different superintendents did not do their due diligence and get rid of this man. And so he has a history of predation throughout that 15 years. And so he's actually in prison, getting ready probably to get out in November. There's a lawsuit against the school. So there's so many implications of that. But that's what spurred me to start doing the research. And to date, I have 289 predators on a list. And that is just predators that have been in our schools since 2010, roughly. There's a few that were there that I have stories prior to 2010, but the majority of those are from 2010 forward. So the last 14 years.
Okay, that's horrifying. How many are in our schools?
Well, there's no telling how many are probably still there. Last year, we had 46 that were reported in the state of Oklahoma. That amounts to 1 every 8 days.
I just can't. So first of all, how can we find you? What is the link to your website?
So it is kind of in transition. It's still there. There's not really a whole lot there, but it's brokentrust.website. You can find our email address down at the bottom. It is connect@brokentrust.website. And you can reach out to us and we can, we'll come talk. I'll come talk. We've done parent education programs, 2 or 3 hours, where we've brought a couple of victims in. We've talked about how to reach out to your school board members, different policy, things that they need to talk to their children about. And the education program of Broken Trust just keeps expanding because there's so much there that we need to be talking about and educating our children, educating parents, educating school boards, educating teachers and administrators. Policy legislators need to understand the impact that this is having on our schools and on our children, and what kind of changes need to be done in the law. Just so much that goes into this.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. We just had breaking news out of Clark County, Las Vegas, in my state, where there was a predator who, I don't know how he got out of jail, but he got out of jail and he immediately reoffended. And so, talk about that. There's statistics that show how these offenders continue and continue and continue, and our justice system seems to be failing us miserably.
Yes. Well, and that's one of the things, the conversations that we're starting to have is that our DAs and our judges need to be educated on predators. And, these people do not recover from this. And the research shows that chemical castration does not change their predation on children, which you would think that would be the deciding factor, but it's not. A lot of times it is about power, and it really just, there's so much education that needs to be done there, because they give them, like, going through some of the reports that I've read, some of these people are being given a 10-year suspended sentence, being put on probation. They have to file as a sex offender, of course, but putting them on a 10-year suspended sentence leaves them out in the community. And even if they can't go into the classroom anymore, there are other ways that they can get at our children through Little League sports, through the churches and through the civic organizations, Boy Scouts, that sort of thing. They're always going to have access to children, and putting them on probation is not going to stop them from preying on our kids.
I agree. In the criminal justice system, when you're going to school, and Andrea, I'm not sure what your degree was in, but I know that we worked as paralegals together. So I assume you had a legal background as well. When they're teaching you in college about this, they say there's not been one rehabilitation from pedophilia. And you guys, I believe it's because it's a spiritual line you cross. Yeah. That goes into the reprobate mind, where it's a line you cross. There is no coming back from that. So you can't rehabilitate him. You can't put him back into society. You can't. And if we would do more of that, then we would just move them into prison and they don't get out.
Yes.
Then they couldn't reoffend other people, because the children that it happens to, then, only 30% of them end up being perpetrators as adults, but they're still making more harm. They're making more psychological harm on these kids that could create another monster.
Yes.
It's only 30% of the kids that are abused that become abusers. But still, let's make it 0. Let's put them away and not give them a chance, because there is no rehabilitation for them.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so frustrating, because I know that you spoke about this before when you were on the show, Sherrie, but the vetting process, I mean, these people can have records, criminal records that show this, and they still get into our school system sometimes. That's the thing that shocks me. And you're absolutely right. People who prey on kids will find areas to work in and be in our society where kids are. I mean, I remember always being so scared of every time I took my kids to like water park and some of the arcade and theme park areas, even the big bowling alleys out where I'm at. You look around and there's people that you can tell are a little out of place and shouldn't be there. And they lurk around bathrooms. When people talk about all this, you know, parents being worried about bathrooms, I have seen things personally as a parent going on in public bathrooms that would make me never want to send my child into a bathroom alone. Like where kids congregate, where kids are, where these predators are going to be.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the thing that makes the school system more dangerous than any others is because when you take your child to a water park, or you take them to Little League, or you take them to dance or Olympics, you have the opportunity to sit and watch while they practice and while they perform and those sort of things. When they are in the school walls, they are at the mercy of the people inside those schools. And so there's absolutely no way for you to go in and monitor what is happening with your children in the school system. And so that's what makes it particularly dangerous inside our schools. Every other place we can be present where our children are, but the school system, you just cannot.
Well, we just had a bill pass in the House and the Senate, and I screamed about it, but it passed and the governor is excited about it. It's called Bell to Bell, No Cell. So now they're taking cell phones away, which is a predator's dream come true.
Yes.
I mean, is there any way to stop that now?
Well, and you know, they sell it as a tool to help with outcomes. I would love to see the research that they're using to say that taking the cell phones away from students is going to help outcomes. I say, how about we put a policy in place in the school and then enforce that policy? If you're going to say no cell phones during class time, it has to be in your bag. Okay, let's enforce that policy. But the problem that you have there is that you've got teachers who will not enforce that policy in their classroom. And so you cannot guarantee that it's going to be consistent across the school. When you take cell phones away from young people, I mean, let's just go back to one of the last school shootings. It was a second grader who pulled out his cell phone and called the police to report the shooter in the school. That second grader saved the lives of many of those children because of that. And we're talking about taking that cell phone away. We've got instances where violence has taken place in the classrooms with teachers who have actually been assaulted by students, and then student on student. You know, it's really not good for any of them to take those cell phones away, because that's where the evidence comes up to be able to stop this. And
they don't want cameras anywhere. They don't want us to have cameras. And so the only thing you have is the phone. I mean, I remember being young with my phone, and I'm older, so I didn't have phones till I was in college, you know, but I remember many times being scared in a parking lot and just being a woman alone on a beach hiking, because I grew up in Tahoe. So I would always bring my phone out and record when I was uncomfortable. And putting that in front of someone's face saying I'm recording every move makes them run away. I mean, it really is a way to protect you to have that camera going.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a lobbyist that was actually supporting that, and some big time money behind it. And I told him, I said, until you stand on the side with me to advocate for cameras in the classroom, then I am not going to support your bill. You know, let's work in tandem. Let's take the cell phones out and put cameras in, and then we'll be on the same side.
Exactly.
But even so, I think the cell phone's out, and I argued this point because they said, you know, it's the test outcomes and it's the learning, but that was infringing on the rights of the parents. So my daughter, who is in public schools, my oldest one, she has parental controls on. She cannot access the internet. She cannot access anything but to message me or call me during school hours, because I'm a responsible parent. To remove every cell phone because some parents are not responsible is the same thought process that removes all guns, because not
Yes.
all people can be responsible.
That's right.
That is, it's in the state was overstepping to even try that. And I am appalled that they got away with it.
Yeah.
I really am.
Well, and I was at a meeting speaking on this subject in Tulsa, and one of the members of the meeting said, "Did you realize that the reason why they're pushing no cell phones in schools in the Jinx community was because there were girls, I think, taking pictures of other girls in the bathrooms?" And I said, "Well, where are the administrators? Where are the teachers? Why are they not enforcing that policy to make sure that the cell phones are not being used in that manner? Let's go back to the parents and say, you need to take that phone away from that child until they learn how to use that respectfully and not punish everybody else in the process."
Yeah, it doesn't make any kind of sense. It's just amazing. But I do want to say, we were talking about how the pedophiles, you can't go, they've crossed a line. And I know this is controversial to say, but it's irrelevant to its truth. This starts with pornography. And so we really need to be getting away from the pornography, because when you get into that, it continues to make you want to push. It's more and more, and it's never enough, and it's never enough. And you go farther and farther, and it ends that's where it ends, is the pedophilia, and you've gone too far, and then you can't come back.
Yeah.
There's no rehabilitation from that. And so we really need to go back to the source of where this starts and quit allowing the kids to be groomed, which is what we're seeing at the drag shows. Quit allowing that seed to be planted.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we normalize the behavior and we desensitize our young people through movies and videos and games and music, all of that, it blurs the lines of morality. And then, and also there's an issue there's a power issue there that young people are afraid to tell their teachers no when they make those advances on them, because maybe they control how much time they spend on the basketball court or on the football field, or debate, or whatever it is that person is in control of. Maybe it's their grades. We've got a young man, a mother whose son committed suicide. He was a rising rodeo star, and the math teacher was controlling his math grade and using sex to coerce him into that. And so, it's definitely a problem, and we need to do better in the state of Oklahoma. And we've got lots of policy that needs to be in place.
Well, as a nation, we need to do better. And, Andrea and I, we were talking a few months ago on this show, it goes back to what you allow your kids to see. Yes. And so we're in a world, and this is a spiritual battle. We say that all the time. Yes. And we think that means you just pray and then go into the government. But it's so much more than that. I don't allow my kids to see most of what other kids are allowed to see. I protect their innocence on a real level. And then when they're old enough to handle it, they will have the base to be able to handle it. Yeah. And we do not do that. And even stuff that I was allowed to see as a kid, I brought up Uncle Buck. And Andrea was like, even Uncle Buck, that teenager was being sexual, and they gave this picture like, this is what you do as a teenager, and we do not have to have
and
that.
The movie Big, that's the one that gives me the biggest heebie-jeebies. In Big, it's an adult woman, basically having sex with a 13-year-old boy. That's what that movie shows, and it's disgusting, but they plant these things in just all over, and it just normalizes it. We're just like, oh, that's cute. Oh, it's Tom Hanks. How cute. Ugh.
Makes me think of that song, Be Careful Little Eyes. It was very popular when we were younger, and it's considered a church song. And so how many family members are not teaching their children that because of how low church attendance is these days? And so, they're not getting that moral authority from their families anymore because they're not getting their truth from the Bible.
Well, and we are the parents of this generation, which is really scary because our innocence wasn't protected. I was at the library with my littlest ones are homeschooled and will never be in a public school ever unless something changes. And they wanted to get this Taylor Swift book that was made for kids. And I'm like, no. And my 7-year-old's like, why? I'm like, she's not a role model. That's how you don't want to act. I'm like, she doesn't dress appropriately. No, she doesn't.
I brought up the other day, I said, does she just write songs about how sexually promiscuous she is? There's this hookup culture that we have to where all these young singers talk about all their heartbreak, but it's like a different relationship every month. And you're thinking, how many people have you been in a relationship with in this year? Because every single
and
one of your songs, and they show it, and it's like they're proud of it. Look who they're with now. That's what Hollywood does. Look at, it's become this hookup, just deranged culture, and women have been lied to, saying that gives them power. That's what makes you cool and awesome. You have power. You can date whoever you want, and it's the exact opposite of reality. I mean, we've completely diluted these women's brains that they think that they have power in that. They feel like they have power in their abortion. And they feel like they have power in the fact that they can be an Instagram model and date, 40 different men every year.
Well, and that is, and she is considered to be pretty easygoing, and she's like kind of vanilla.
She's definitely easy.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to pick on her. I'm saying the standard we have as a society is so off. No wonder this is such a problem.
Yeah, well, we just don't even see it. Like I was
Right.
talking about Nicolas Cage goes to whatever award, because I don't watch Hollywood stuff anyway, but he was in the news. He went to some award show and he had his new wife with him. Okay, he's in his 50s, 60s maybe, and he had a 19-year-old wife with him, or a new girlfriend. There's a bunch. Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriend, 19 years old. These people can't even go to a bar with him, and these guys are in their 50s. So when do you stop and say, ew, that's gross, and we shouldn't be high-fiving these guys over this?
Yeah, I remember. Back
Okay.
when my kids were little, we were at Disney World, and there was a big screen with what's her name, blonde-headed crazy girl.
That does not narrow it down.
Britney Spears.
Britney Spears. Yes,
Okay.
Britney, yes, Britney. Sorry, she was doing her song where she was dressed up like a schoolgirl.
Yeah.
And I looked at my then 7-year-old, and I said, "You see that girl right there?" I said, "That
You're
is
not
an
going to be
example of the kind of girl you do not bring home to mother.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
You're not going to marry that kind of girl. That is the opposite of what you're going to marry, please." And I started when he was 7 saying that to him. And so
Absolutely.
I think that's the conversation. It's just like talking to our young people about our educators that are in our schools, because how many parents, in past generations, I know, I was guilty of doing this. It's like, you better do what your teachers say, and don't you dare cross them, and if you're in trouble with them, you're in trouble with me, type thing. And I mean, we're teaching our children that we are supposed to, that they are infallible, and that they're supposed to do what they say. Well, then, how does that translate back whenever they start getting groomed and then sexually assaulted and harassed by their educators, whom we have taught them that they are supposed to respect?
Yeah, respect your elders. And a lot of times, as we know, it's family, right? It's familial. There's usually like a cousin or an uncle or someone that the family trusts, that's inside the home. And then again, like you've said, you've taught them, oh, that's your family member, you trust them, you do whatever they say, that's your elder. Well, there's a way we need to be speaking to our kids that draws a hard line between appropriateness and
yes.
not, and show them those warning signs too.
Yes. And just simple things like, if you have a daughter that gets in trouble at school, and you tell her, you do not go into another adult's room or office by yourself. You take, you either insist on another teacher, or you insist on another student going with you. You take someone that you trust in there with you, or
and do that the rest of your life. I tell all my politicians that, because I work on campaigns, I say, you are never on a one-on-one conversation ever with anyone, because the enemy will always get you on that. But that goes back to even my corporate days in HR. Don't go anywhere alone. But teaching young women that.
Well, and it's not just women.
System is huge.
It's not just women.
You should never be alone with one teacher and a child. There should always be a third person there.
Yeah, we have a case out in Wewoka where the principal was actually sexually assaulting the boys in his office. He got caught twice. Ugh. Somehow or another, he ended up being.
How do you get caught twice? How is it not the first time you get thrown in prison?
Thank you.
Right? Yes. And he was found not guilty. Now the school's paying for it, and so are the taxpayers in the community. But he was found not guilty.
Gross.
Ugh. Yes,
this is disgusting. Now I know that in Oklahoma, and so once again, you guys check out your state, because if it's this way in Oklahoma, what is it like where you're at?
Mm-hmm.
But I know that if they got in trouble for being some kind of predator, that they could just, if they were quiet about it, they could just resign quietly. Nobody would say anything, and they could go to a different school.
And there's no record of it.
That's ridiculous. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited. You guys, once again, go to freedombrigades.com, sign up for Dan Lyons. I'm going to go let him harass me and sign up myself. He will partner with Dr. Sherwood, who's also one of our affiliates. And between the two,
I would love to get videos of you.
nonstop.
I want to see videos of Charity training with Dan, because she's running for state chair, Dan. So she needs to like get real fit and in shape because she's going to be all over the state. I want
time.
videos of her.
It's time to.
I have a
time
feeling
to
she'll
go.
be
Let's
cussing.
go.
I think it'll be hysterical.
Oh my good Lord. Andrea's not allowed to be in the room.
I want to be there.
Thank you for joining us, Dan.
Yeah. No, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to check out the rest of the episode later. Thanks for having me on, guys.
I'm going to call you
Appreciate
later.
it.
Thank you.
All right.
That's awesome. Sorry, Sherrie, I cut you off.
No, that's okay.
Let him go.
That's all right.
Well,
Yeah, sorry,
we do
well,
have, so
mixed up.
Team Iowa is fighting this trafficking in a huge way. And now we've had Rachel on before, and they are coming back on with April, who is a rock star. But, you know, this is Jeffrey Prather's Team Oklahoma, and we have, or I'm sorry, Team America. I also work with Team Oklahoma, but Team Iowa is taking the trafficking on in a huge way. And I want to bring them on too. Sherrie, I think you're going to love what they have to say.
All right, let me
So-
go. I feel like Rachel might be upside down.
Rachel,
Bring her in.
okay, she'll flip it over. She's pretty.
See?
Rachel, you're upside down. We need you to flip back.
I don't know how that happens.
I don't know how that happens either. Can you hear us?
She was right side up a second ago.
Oh,
We're famous for having things like this happen on our show.
we are.
It's like everything will be right before we go live, and then
Yeah. Oh no. Okay. Well, did she get it?
Oh,
Can
she's
she hear us?
sideways. I see
Now
she's sideways now.
Okay, we'll
I
get
need
it.
one more flip. Oh, we got Steve though. You want to bring Steve in?
Yes, I want to bring Steve on.
There we
Hey,
go.
Steve.
And then
Hey, there we go. I wasn't sure if the camera was working, but you guys can hear me okay?
I can see you too.
All right. Well, I'm not sure that's a good thing.
So tell us what's going on in Iowa.
Well, so I have a full page here of notes, but we don't have time for that. We'll catch up on that probably on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Do we want to focus on human trafficking,
Yes.
Charity?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just do a high level here, so that when Stacy comes on the 22nd with myself, we can get into the weeds with you on that.
Awesome.
I'm listening to the conversation you've just had. I'm listening to it and going, yep, yes. And then we've got, because of Stacy's hard work in this, we've got so much more detail into how deep and dark and the portals that they're using to get after our children. So, you know, I guess what I'll start first is Jeff Prather says this all the time. The male's first two responsibilities as men is A, to protect the children, and B, to protect the women. Now,
Yeah.
I know that sounds a little old fashioned and old school, but it's absolutely gospel truth. That's God's law. And so,
Yeah.
you know, that's where we have to get that back to, you know, is to that, right? We have to be the protectors. And unfortunately, you know, I always complain about, you know, Team Iowa was made up of the majority of our members are women warrior and mama bears. And I've got some great guys, but I keep asking, what happened to the men? Where are the male warriors today in this fight, this spiritual battle that we are all in, that you're talking about?
Yep.
And it's very frustrating for me.
and you're not the
but
only one
anyway-
that says that. Tom Wren says it all the time. He goes, "Where
We
are all
need
the
toxic
men?"
masculinity, please.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, pardon my language, but we need some ass kickers out there, and
Absolutely.
We
you know,
do.
that's what it has to go. So I'll start at the very beginning in our entry into this whole human trafficking. Stacy came to us as a team about it's been a year and a half ago, when we were talking about inflection points that we wanted to be involved with besides what we'd already been doing. And she brought up this documentary film called Grid Shock. It was produced and filmed right here in the state of Iowa by an Iowa State grad. She actually interviews 3 women right here in Iowa who were trafficked, and she interviews them, and they go, I mean, they don't hold back. They tell you the whole story. And it is, you know, if you thought The Sound of Freedom was difficult to watch, that movie, this takes you into the real darkness of human trafficking. And anyway, and then she's got some law enforcement people. She actually has a John, or a customer, who was a minister, who got addicted to porn, and then was moving in the direction of buying sex and all this other stuff. And he talks about the addiction and how incredibly difficult. I'm getting the feedback right now. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sorry, I think it was Rachel's screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just how difficult it was for him, and it's going to be something he has to work on his whole life. But I don't want to get too deep into Grid Shock itself, but we went and, as a team, decided to buy the rights to take the documentary film to the public here in Iowa. And I started with it. Stacy started with it. I still work full time. I mean, Stacy and she's my assistant team lead on Team Iowa. As all of our members are. We're all very, very busy. And Stacy just said, "This is my wheelhouse. I want to run with it." And I said, "It's all yours." And we support her any way we can. So where we're at today is that Stacy has now presented Grid Shock around all over the state. I have done it on the western side of the state, but I can tell you that Stacy's presentation is so dynamic. She will present the film. It's 55 minutes long. And then now, with all the stories that come out from her presentations from victims who have been coming forward and whatnot, she now has a full hour after the documentary. So it's a 2-hour evening. And I'll be honest with you that the 55 or 60 minutes after the documentary, the information there is as compelling as the documentary film itself. And it is shocking people, because the human trafficking that we're discussing and what Grid Shock really highlights is not what's come across the southern border, or is the guy driving around in the white van swooping kids off the street corners. It's not that at all. It's what's going on right here in our own backyard, in our neighborhoods, out in the rural areas, with people we know, community leaders, law enforcement, educators, as you talked about earlier. It's everywhere in our societies. Many times it's people, family members, people we know who are involved in this, and and they're hiding behind the curtain, so to speak, with it. And so she's now presented almost 130 times. Her goal is to get into every town in the state of Iowa. But more importantly, what's just happened recently, and this is where we've been trying to get to with it, is into the schools. We want to be able to present Grid Shock to the high school and even down to the junior high level, with parents' permission there, to them. And we finally broke through. Interesting caveat to that was the first school that invited us in was a Catholic private school on the western side of the state. I was kind of like, wow. And I was there for that. We had several other school districts with administrators for that, and that opened the door for us. And now Stacy is getting invited. We're running out of time for the school year, but we've got schools now coming up and saying, "We want this. We want to see it." We have a lot of law enforcement people that are attending, both sheriffs, city police officers. We've had state troopers. I'm very good friends with our county sheriff. Pete and I work very closely together. And I just had lunch with him last week, and I was sharing some of the information, and he was like, "Whoa, I didn't know that." And they've gone through training. So the training our LEOs, our law enforcement officials, are getting is not, it's very high level.
That's right.
But I'm kind of rattling on here, so stop me if you have any questions.
So what is the parental rating on the Grid Shock movie? If there's
What is the what? I'm sorry, Charity.
The parental rating. So like, at what age is it recommended they can watch it?
There's not a parental rating on it so much, but unfortunately, the victims, it doesn't stop at junior high. They're going all the way down into the elementary grades, but that's too young in our opinion. So the way we present it to the schools is, we feel all these high school kids definitely can hear this, because we know what's going on at that level.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot about what's going on in the schools and within, just in the kids alone, not just necessarily the pedos and those, but the kids themselves and what they're doing and taking pictures, nudies, and putting on social, all this stuff. We've got a lot of stories there, which are absolutely shocking.
Mm-hmm. They are.
And then we say junior high level, we suggest to the administrators that you get parental permission, or parents come to to the viewing with their kids.
And we just spoke with Mike Dillon, Maha Mike. He grew up in Florida near where the Epstein crew were targeting local high schools and grabbing girls from there and grooming them. So again, this isn't people being shipped in from other parts of the world. This is our neighborhoods and our schools. And they talked about how, these girls would get fancy. They take them shopping. They'd give them money, and it became a thing where like all these girls were part of it. And it just got, it goes from there. And like, that's what you're talking about with the Instagram stuff too. It's like, they make money off of it. They get attention and it becomes a cultural thing. And they don't realize that they're being put into basically a pedophile ring,
That's correct. Technology today is our biggest enemy. These phones are a big problem. Social media is a big problem. Gaming is a big problem.
Yes, it is.
They are now they're using these different gaming platforms, and they're passing themselves off as a young boy or whatever, and hooking up. Hey, we're playing. And they start asking the questions pretty soon. They're buddy with the young man on the other end, and then that's where it can get pretty dicey. We've run some numbers on it. We think Stacy alone has probably connected with well over 12 or 13,000 people just in her viewings. Last night she presented she had 300 people show up. And so we've reached critical mass now where people are coming to these. I mean, we started off, I'd have 12 or 10 people show up, right? We now are in the hundreds, and it's pretty amazing. We've connected now with a young lady who was trafficked, who started her own nonprofit. She's out now trying to teach at the school level. It's just amazing how it's really starting to compound. We have 4 safe houses in the state, and they know us, we know them. We're planning a big event in September here in Des Moines, actually, where we're bringing Kathy O'Brien in. If you don't, I'm sure you know who she is and what happened to her. If you don't, we'll share that on the 22nd. And Jeff Prather and his family may be coming up as well. We've got some other, kind of big podcast names that we're going to come in for this event with the hope of raising some significant cash that we can donate to these safe houses. They're all nonprofit and running on donations only for the most part. And the other thing I don't want to leave out is we are very connected to one of our legislators who's a retired Marine, served with General Flynn in Benghazi, came back to live out in a small town here in Iowa and hang out with his grandkids and drive a school bus. Instead, he got talked into running. In his first term, he got our laws in the state of Iowa hardened from Class C and D felonies to Class A and B felonies. So now if you get busted for going after somebody under 18, that's a Class A. That's life without parole. And the good news is we just had our first prosecution and conviction. And so that was the door that we needed to have open. We're now working. He's also gotten an anti-grooming bill passed last year. And now we're working to try and get the money at state level to start to get a coordinated law enforcement, agency, multi-agency organization to focus solely on going after the human trafficking aspect of it, where they're not distracted with other responsibilities. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Amen. We need that in every state. I mean, because working with Tom Renz, we get calls from just about every state of this stuff going on. I mean, we've been working close with what was going on in Nashville. People don't understand that, you've got these little sectors in these big cities, but it happens in the small rural areas as well. And then when we talk about, something like Epstein, where people are getting blackmailed, well, people in your community are getting blackmailed too. I mean, it's your judges, it's your law enforcement, it's, like you're saying, principals of schools and things that get wrapped up into this stuff, and it's gross, but they get wrapped up into it for a reason, because they get blackmailed so that they can all kind of protect each other. And what we're seeing in Nashville is the way that they actually were moving money around with the human trafficking, because you're going, oh, well, how do they exchange so much money? Well, they were doing it with mortgage loans, like mortgage loans that, someone just walks in and pays cash for, right? You get like all this crazy stuff. So we're finding out how they move the money around. But I'm telling you, it happens in your community. And the reason why it's so hard to get these guys and lock them up is because they've blackmailed, the people in power. It's scary to think of how many pedophile rings there are in every community. It's in your community too.
Yeah. The other piece of that sorry, just want to throw something in there. Is that the other piece of that is the reason why they target the rural communities is because they can go into those communities and they groom everyone and they set themselves up as this great person, these great families or, whatever. And then whenever it comes out and somebody says, oh, well, so-and-so is grooming me or so-and-so, raped me or assaulted me, then they wrap around that pedophile, around the abuser and not around the abused. The abused actually get abused even more by the community because they get chastised. And actually some of them end up getting run out of the town because they've come against somebody who is, supposed to be this, great upstanding citizen, favorite teacher, favorite coach, winning coach, those sort of circumstances. And so we just cultivate that culture by holding some of these people in higher esteem than actually what we should, rather than listening to the abused. We listen to the abuser and try to protect that person's reputation, and it just makes the whole system work because of that.
The other challenge that we have in this is that the victims oftentimes, getting them to actually put themselves on the stand in a courtroom and have to face their accusee, the person that went after them, and have to relive the whole experience in front of a judge and a jury and people is very challenging. So we have to find a way to get these courts to allow the victims to do their testimony maybe in the other room via video, something like that, because we've got to make it easier for these victims to come forward and be able to allow us to push the prosecution all the way through.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys, I thank you for coming on and letting the world know what's happening. This is not acceptable, and we have to fight back. We have to expose right now. That's how you fight back, is exposing the evil.
Yep.
And so you guys join at freedombrigades.com, get involved in your community. We're asking for 4 hours a month of your time. Check out Broken Trust. It's brokentrust.website. Is that correct?
We have our Facebook page is much more active. There's also another website that you can check out called iheartmyteacher.org, and that highlights what's happening across the United States. Broken Trust is specific to Oklahoma, but there's like 24,000, 25,000 reports there for sexual assault across the United States. We also are running a Facebook page by that same name that we've just launched, and so they can get all that information. They can reach out to us through either one of those two Facebook pages.
Okay, sounds good, you guys. So I look forward to having Team Iowa come on. Yeah, go ahead.
No, just my closing comment is this. The more that we can work on this and get this information out to as many people as possible, the more light we shine into this darkness, and the cockroaches will run.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
We're trying to raise money to create a documentary ourselves, so that we can do exactly what you all are doing in Iowa on trafficking, so that we can bring this information to the people.
Amen.
And you guys could purchase the documentary film. I think it's thegridshock.com for $10 to view it.
Yeah, they're hooked up with Gabe Woolley as well. Rachel was introduced to him. Yeah, and so
I love him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yep, he is.
So all right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. We will have a good week, and don't forget to sign up, guys. We got to be purposeful with our time, purposeful with our money. We are at war. We have been infiltrated. This is a spiritual war, so make sure you're praying.
Yep. Thank you for having me on.
God bless you guys.
Sherrie.
Thank you for your work.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Sherrie. Thanks.